All the sports news you need. Live.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the locker room. As you can see, it is not Michael or Reagan. I heard the rest of the guys are still at Tannadice picking up all the tangerines. Good luck to you guys. But we have brought back Graham. Graham, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. It's been a rather strange 24 hours, but that's the fabulous world of Scottish football, isn't it?
It's never a normal weekend in Scottish football. Before we obviously get into probably the biggest headline of the weekend, congratulations to Celtic on yet another Cinch Premiership title win. They obviously beat Dundee United 5-0. We'll get into the game later, but Graham, of course, we need to start with Hearts. You guys have sacked Neil Critchley after the 1-0 loss at home to Dundee. What were your thoughts on the sacking? Did you expect it to happen so quickly?
To be honest, no. I'd heard after the game there was a board meeting, and I'd heard rumours of it was 4-3 in favour of Critchley staying. So I think a lot of folk thought he was going to keep the job. I was at the game yesterday with my laddie, and it was awful. It was another poor performance, and it's happened so many times this season. But I didn't expect the board to act. I thought they would keep him in charge. But I think it's the right call. And I have defended Critchley since he's been here since October. I've tried to give him time. I've tried to back him and say he needs longer, he needs a transfer window. But even after yesterday, I was struggling to back him because the performance was flat, it was lethargic, it was awful to watch. And in the end, it was the right call, but I didn't actually think they'd do it. Because at this board, I don't trust them, and I didn't think they'd actually have the bottle to do it. But it is the right call in the
end. I mean, look, I was listening to Super Scoreboard yesterday, and I think Gordon Duncan brought up a good point that, managers don't really get a chance. I mean, it was sort of speaking about bringing in a rule, and it would never harm, but, a rule that a manager would need to at least have 2 windows before you can sack him. I mean, I get it, the results haven't been good enough for Critchley. Obviously another really poor performance, but as you said, he's not even had a summer transfer window yet.
No, I mean, 6 months isn't long. He's been in since October. He's had one window, where I actually think he signed quite well. 6 months is not long. And I kind of agree with what Gordon Duncan said about the transfer windows. I do think you need to give somebody longer. But I think if you can see that things are actually working, you can see something's actually going to happen, then you think, okay, maybe he should stay. But I think the thing with Critchley is you could tell it wasn't working. He'd lost the dressing room, I think, and he'd lost the fans. And once you lose the fans, you're up against it. And he's absolutely lost the fan base. I think it's very harsh to get rid of managers because we've done this far too often. There was a stat that came up on something that I read earlier. Since we went into administration, we've had 7 managers. And our most successful manager was Robin Nielsen. Neil Critchley's failed miserably. And I think what goes against Neil Critchley is the fact that he didn't win a big game. He didn't beat Celtic, didn't beat Rangers, didn't beat Aberdeen. The big one, he didn't beat Hibs. And he had 1 win against Dundee United. That stat is not great. So I think, as much as it might seem harsh to folk outside, if they've not watched Hearts, they can see it's the right call.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, look, the last Hearts game I managed to watch was, of course, the semi-final, and I actually thought Hearts done all right in that game. Although you didn't, win and go through, I thought, until, the players get sent off and all that. I thought Hearts showed real character about themselves. I thought Shankland finally delivered a good finish in the game, but you're right, ultimately you didn't win the game, and I think that is the biggest problem now. I've managed to watch Hearts twice against my team, and you have actually done well and got the points in each of them, so thanks for that. But I mean, you're right, it's not good enough to be losing all these big games, and I suppose that is what a Hearts manager gets, judged on these games against Hibs. It's like, Dundee's manager, Dundee United, Jim Goodwin, will always get, rated on how he does against your rivals. It's just the way it is for you guys.
Yeah, the semi-final, I actually gave him credit for because I thought we were the better team until the sending off of Steinwinder. After that, we didn't really create a lot. It was a case of trying to play for set pieces, and then later on, it was pretty clear we're playing for penalties. But I thought there was something about the team last week. There was a work rate, an energy, a passion that I've not seen for a while. Why we've not done that for the rest of the season, I don't know. But I thought last week might have given him a chance, a bit more time. But then you look at yesterday, and it was so flat. You're going into a game against Dundee, who up until yesterday had conceded 71 goals in the league, the worst defensive record in the league, and we had one shot on target. That is not good enough for a Hearts team at Tynecastle. It was awful. There was no real game plan. It was so slow, so lethargic. I saw Hearts fans before the game saying, "Oh, do you know what? It's a nothing game." It really wasn't, because we knew if we lost that, we get dragged into a relegation battle, which is what's happened now. So I think the performance yesterday wasn't good. It was a poor performance. His substitutions were baffling yesterday. He took off Benny at half-time, and I assumed it was an injury. But I listened to Critchley after the game and said it was tactical. I found that baffling, because Benny's one of our best players. Why are you taking him off? The changes yesterday, like a few weeks ago, made no sense. You talk about Shankland. I think that game against Dundee was his best game for a while. I thought he was excellent last week. Even when we got down to 10 men, I thought he was excellent. He didn't play yesterday because he was injured, but there's been too many games like that. We've been so flat. Like I said yesterday, they gave the crowd us 18,000. There was no chance there was 18,000 at a game. 10,000 at a push. But it was just flat. It was so poor. There was no real urgency in the play. Even going the last 5 minutes, you're 1-0 down. It was just so flat. There was no urgency. And I'm sitting there thinking, where's this at trying to go forward? You have to win the game, and there's nothing at all. Dundee were comfortable. And I keep going back to the fact, this is a Dundee side that's conceded the most goals in the league, and they were comfortable. It was awful.
Yeah, Paul puts in the comments, "I all thought Critchley might have got a bit longer. He inherited an awful situation when he took over as Hearts manager." And that's why I feel a bit worse for him as well. I mean, it wasn't like he came into Hearts, it was all sunshine and roses. He came in after a really poor start of the season for Stephen Naismith, not to mention, the team were playing every 3 days practically in Europe and then in domestic. So I felt bad for him in that sense, because, it wasn't like he just came in and he got it easy. It was difficult for the beginning for Critchley.
I completely agree. He came into a side that hadn't won a game under Stephen Naismith. After last season, where we were third in the league, it's crazy to think how bad that has gone. But yeah, he came into a side that was lacking of confidence, had no wins in the league, looked devoid of ideas. And to start off, he actually did quite well. Beat St Mirren first game, beat Ammonia in Europe. He started off very well, and I thought, yeah, this is all right. There's something about this guy. And it just went downhill. Europe was an absolute disaster. It looked harder to not qualify for the next stage than it did to actually qualify. And we blew it. We only needed to beat Petrograd at home, who were the worst team in the competition from Moldova, and we failed to beat them. And you kind of think after that, right, okay, that's not good. But you still give him time, because he didn't have a transfer window. And there were some games we actually did okay in. I talked about the big games earlier. We drew with Aberdeen at Pittodrie 0-0. George Grant missed a penalty. That could change things. The Rangers game at Tynecastle lost 3-1. 21 attempts on goal we had. Lost the game 3-1, but we actually played quite well that game. So there's been some games that's actually been a bit unlucky, but other games, it's just been so poor. That Motherwell game before the split, again, a massive must-win game to finish top 6. There's a lot of talk about Lawrence Shankland. We all know he's not been great, but you're dropping Shankland for a big game like that and then having to bring him on later when you're struggling. Stuff like that was crazy. And it's decisions like that have really baffled Hearts fans. His in-game substitutions have been absolutely crazy. Same again yesterday. 90 minutes on the board. 6 minutes goes up for extra time. And you're bringing on Alan Forrest and taking off Elton Kabangu. And I'm kind of thinking, what's the point in that? You're taking off your only striker to bring Alan Forrest on. It's stuff like that didn't help. I heard his after-match interview after the game yesterday, and he said that we controlled the game. We did, but it was in our own half. We had the ball in our own half. There was nothing going forward. So things like that don't help him. A lot of folk from outside Hearts I've seen said it's very harsh, and I understand that. But when you've watched Hearts for as long as I have, you can see that it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You just know when it's not going to work with a manager. All the fans can see it, and as you said, as soon as our managers not get the trust by the fans, your job becomes 100 times harder. There has, of course, been new managers in and around talks. I know you've already seen a few, but I will read a few to you. One that seems to be getting flung about everywhere is John McGlynn. I don't know how you feel about that.
You can probably tell from my face how I feel about that. I mean, honestly, there is no point having Jamestown analytics if all you're going to do is go back to guys like John McGlynn, Craig Levine, Robbie Nielsen. We need to think outside the box. The thing is, where I think it went against Neil Critchley as well is that he wasn't even first choice. Per Hobble was first choice, but he turned it down because he wanted his own backroom staff. And then when I put Neil Critchley, think outside the box. There is no point having Jamestown there if you're just going to go with the guys on that list. Again, I know I've not had you read the list out, but I'm assuming the guys like Derek McInnes, Robinson are on that list. For me, no. They're good managers. They're good managers, but they're not. You need to be the right fit. And I think these guys fit St Mirren. They fit teams like Kilmarnock, but these guys don't fit Hearts. And with Derek McInnes as well, the big thing about this as well that folk don't seem to realise is Derek McInnes wants to have full control of the club. He won't have that at Hearts because we've got a sporting director. He won't have full control. It won't work. So I think you need to be the right fit. Again, the pundits and that will talk about Derek McInnes should be the manager. Not for me.
Yeah, I think it was Sutton or somebody on Sky yesterday speaking about actually Derek McInnes taking it, and I agree. To be honest, I don't think Derek would be the right fit for Hearts, in my opinion. But Robinson's always an interesting one to me, and that might be slightly biased coming from a St Mirren fan, but I look at Robinson and I don't just look at what he's done with St Mirren. I think also what he done with Motherwell, but I don't know, something in my head, in a bad way, I can picture Stephen Robinson with a Hearts badge on his chest. I don't know why, I can just picture that image in my head, and as much as I don't want it to happen, and I hope you guys go absolutely nowhere near Robinson because it'll break my heart, I just see something about him and see him in the Hearts job. I don't know what it is.
I mean, you're a St Mirren fan. You see more of St Mirren than I do. But I mean, do you think Stephen Robinson's style would suit Hearts? Because Hearts fans, every fan wants this, but Hearts fans want a team that plays front foot, want to press high, want to play attacking football. Is Robinson that type of manager that could actually come to Hearts and fit in well, or do you not think that?
Robinson, he could definitely play high pressing football. That's one thing he's done well with us. We can press really high up the pitch and make it difficult for teams. If some fans at Hearts want possession football, which I suppose a lot of fans do these days in football, that's not what you're going to get with Robinson. Robinson's very much a guy that will get the ball up to Cabango and try and make him, be the centre of the play. You watch it with Mandro and Younger, they drift into the midfield basically. They pick up the ball and try and play it out wide. So if you're wanting possession football, it's definitely, I know what you're going to get with Robinson, and I suppose that maybe the reason why the fans still want him, because he's not the type of manager to play possession football.
I mean, I saw somebody earlier on mention David Martindale, and I'm sorry, but not a chance. If David Martindale gets the Hearts job, shut the gates and close the door. I think Livingston's a very good club. Don't get me wrong. I think they're a really, really fantastic club. And Martindale's done a great job. But David Martindale should be nowhere near that Hearts job. And I know, obviously, me and Robbie and that know each other through different things and stuff. And Robbie mentioned Craig Levine. That's the kind of thing Hearts would definitely do. That's the kind of thing that Anne Budge would do. That can happen. We need to think outside the box. Look at Aberdeen. They went for Jimmy Thielin. And to be fair, he's done a decent job in his first season. Probably Aberdeen expected maybe not to be where they are. I think they maybe, I don't know what they expected, but probably wasn't where they are. But I think I'd like to go down the Scandinavian route. The guy I quite like, but I don't think we'll get, is Kim Hellberg at Hammarby. He'd be a really good option, but whether that's viable, I don't know. But I just think it's too easy to go for the predictable names like Robinson, like Derek McInnes, guys like that. You need to think outside the box. Hearts have got a massive fan base. There's 7,000 people waiting on the season ticket list. You can't go down that Scottish route again. It doesn't work. Neil Critchley, I do feel sorry for him, because I feel sorry for any manager that gets sacked. But it wasn't really working out. His after-match interviews were very kind of along the same lines. He's a nice guy, but sometimes nice guys don't always work as a manager, and that's been proven at Hearts. It just didn't work.
Yeah, Scots and Spain puts Derek McInnes question mark. I think we've already covered that. To be honest, although Derek would give you possession football, I think that's a key difference between him and Robinson. I think McInnes does play a bit more suited to what fans prefer, but I just don't think that record at Kelly this season justifies him getting the Hearts job.
Again, I think McInnes is a good manager. I genuinely do think he's a good manager, but I just don't think his style would work at Hearts. Hearts need to have someone that's going to press high, play attacking football, play with speed. Again, that's something that Critchley just didn't do in January. We signed a wide player. We were lacking width, and it's still the case. Any new manager that comes in has to play a certain style of football and has to play with that width and that pace. I don't really think Derek McInnes would do that. And again, I don't think... I've talked about the fact that I think Neil Critchley lost the fan base. I don't think Derek McInnes would have the fan base from day one, personally.
That's the thing. If you go close to home, I don't think McInnes, I don't think Robinson, I don't think anybody else close to home would have the backing of the fans for day one. I think if you were to sign anybody for our league, it would be coming in and you need to show us what you can do. We're not going to trust you right now, but if you can show us what you can do, then we can maybe get behind you. I know this is a laugh for League Club on. I'll let Michael Beale's not get a job right now, go and get him. But no, seriously, I mean, I don't think Martindale would take it. I don't even think he'd get anywhere near it, to be honest. He's not on the list that I've got here. First name on the list, which is apparently Daily Record's favourite for the job, is Kim Hellberg. The Swedish name, which, to be honest, I don't know much about. But, I mean, again, if you're going to somewhere else, I suppose it's not a bad shout. I mean, he's apparently got quite a good record. So it could be a good name to take.
He's the one that I would be looking at. I've had a look at his record and stuff. He seems to be a very good manager and plays the style of football that Hearts fans want. And he's done well at Hammarby since he's been there as well. So he's the kind of manager I'd want. I just think it's too easy to go down the whole Scottish route. Again, you're looking at guys like McInnes, Martindale, Robinson. I just don't think they're a good fit for Hearts, but I think somebody like Kim Hellberg would. Why not try something different? And again, I said it earlier, there's no point in us having Jamestown, having Tony Bloom there, to just go for the Scottish route. You need to think outside the box and go get something different. So I think somebody like Kim Hellberg would be a really good shout. Whether we would get him, I don't know, because he's not actually been at Hammarby that long. But from what I've seen, he does play the kind of football that I would quite like to see at Hearts.
Incoming Gareth Southgate. Make it happen.
Michael Beale.
Yeah. Roy Hodgson. I heard he's still a bit somewhere. Get him in the job. But no, it will be interesting to see who is the next Hearts manager. There's some other names on the list. Raphael Wicke is on the list. I know he's, I think, managed Basel for a bit. I think he's also managed a couple under 17 teams.
Is Jurgen Klopp on that list? Take him.
You get Jurgen. I mean, he needs a new challenge. Not had one in a while, but Marek Papson, I think that's how you pronounce his second name. He's also made the list. There's a few managers on here that would probably surprise you, but the front runner seems to be John McGlynn, which, again, what is the point in taking a manager that, let's be honest, they might not even win the championship this season? It could be Martindale doing the double.
I mean, seriously, they were 11 points ahead at one point and it's now level. I mean, they really have bottled this. I think the one thing I would say for Falkirk is the last game is at home at Hamilton, a game that you should expect them to win. But there is a nervousness about Falkirk just now. We've already had John McGlynn as manager at Hearts a long time ago, and he was all right. I think he's clearly learned his lessons. And he does play good football. But for me, it's another one. There is no point in having Jamestown if you're just going to go back to the guys you've already had. I don't think John McGlynn should be a viable option. I think he's done a fantastic job at Falkirk. Really good job. But I think he suits a club, maybe lower ends of the Premiership, like a St Johnstone, for example. For me, not for Hearts. I don't think, again, I keep going back to the fact the fans wouldn't take to managers. I don't think they would take to John McGlynn.
Yeah, Scotland's been saying the next Rangers manager will be interesting, and it's going to be David Martindale. And it's, who needs Jose Mourinho when you've got Big David that can come in and take the
It might be Neil Critchley, he's out of job now.
Liam Fox does take interim charge. Is there anything he can do to make you consider keeping him on full time?
Not a chance, mate. I think Liam Fox is a nice guy. I think we've had too many of them. He's taken interim charge before and done a decent job, but he cannot be considered for the manager's job. Absolutely no chance. If he is the next Hearts manager, I don't think I'll watch many games next season, to be honest.
Mark Doyle says, Rangers fan here, Hearts should go for Derek McInnes or Sitman manager. I mean, it's the two that are going to get flung about the most in the country. Everybody will be talking about McInnes or Robinson because they just get linked with every job in Scotland. Robinson's getting linked with the Rangers job at the end of the season, which to me will be absolutely no chance. Paul Donaldson puts Neil Warnock, get him back up the road for one last run. But no, like Robinson, McInnes, I don't think there'll be any proof in the rumours, but there's undoubtedly going to be rumours about the both of them potentially going for the Hearts job.
Oh, there always is, mate. As soon as a manager gets sacked, they're the first two names that are on the mention list from pundits and stuff. It's like they don't know anybody else apart from those two. For me, nah. I just don't think they would fit at Hearts. But the one thing I will say as well, obviously when a manager gets sacked, all the stuff is about him, the criticism is about him. But for me, I think those players have been a massive, massive letdown. They've thrown him under a bus, and they've thrown Naismith under a bus as well. Too many of those players have not performed to the level they should be at. I thought in the summer, and I said this at the time, would sign really well. The likes of Jan Danda's been really disappointing. Lawrence Shankland's not had the great season. Blair Spittle's not had the great season. I look at that squad right now and I think probably the only players that can hold their heads up high are Benny Meringame, James Penrice and Cammy Devlin. After that, too many of those players just haven't been good enough. I don't think they understand what it means to play for Hearts. And it showed that yesterday in that game. You're 1-0 down at home to Dundee. A really, really poor Dundee side. Sorry, Dundee fans, but it's true. At home. And we had nothing about us at all. And then you take the one guy off in Benny, who's actually got something about him. Those players need to take a lot of blame for this. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have got us in this position. As much as Critchley's tactics might not have worked, this is on those players. And they've got to take a large share of the blame. And whoever comes in as manager has to bin half that squad because half of them just are not good enough.
I really think Hearts will go for them too. I mean, like, I'll be interested to see how it goes, but just to ask you finally on the manager situation, you know, you spoke about the players there, obviously they need to take some blame, but I'm looking at the board and particularly Budge as well, and, you know, it's not just Budge on this situation or anything like that, it's Budge and what she's done at Hearts, it's, you know, gone down into the Championship now. Obviously that season unfolded in a pretty unlucky way for Hearts and the way it happened, but to still get relegated and to still be at the club and, you know, things are now going great. I mean, finally, what's your thoughts on, you know, Budge and the rest of the board?
Yeah, I've said it before and I make no apologies for this. I don't trust this board. They've made far too many poor decisions over the last few years. We've had, since administration, I think I mentioned this earlier, we've had 7 permanent managers. And the only one on that list that's actually done any good is Robin Nielsen. We've had Craig Levine, we've had Daniel Stendhal, we've had Ian Cathro, we've had Frankie McIvoy, we've now had Neil Critchley. It's been an absolute avalanche of failures. The only one I can say that had anything about them was Robin Nielsen, but I don't want him back. And I know he's been sacked from his job in the MLS. I don't want him back. So yeah, I think Anne Budge has got to take a lot of blame for this. There are not enough football folk on that board, and that's a big issue I've got. If you look at the previous decisions that have been made, there's not football people on that board. And I think it's been an absolute catastrophe. There was a thing I saw earlier from another Hearts podcast that posted this, and I found this mental. We've got £50 million about sitting in that bank from Foundation of Hearts, from ticket sales and all that kind of stuff. Where is it? Where's all that money? Because it's not getting spent on players. The most money that we spent on a player is £850,000 for Mirsad Bislesia back in 2000 and I can't remember what year it was, but it was a long time ago. It was when Romanoff was still here anyway. Where's the money gone? What are we spending it on? For Hearts to be in the bottom 6 is embarrassing. To be sitting 8th, and I'm going to be honest here, we're in trouble. We're in a relegation playoff. This is on the board. This is on the players. This is on everybody. This is not good enough. And we have to make sure that we're not in this position again. But I'm concerned for the rest of the season. We've got 4 games left. We're away to Dingwall next week, which isn't easy. We're only 5 points off Ross County. We lose that game next week, we're in serious trouble. and we don't score goals. Our last 4 league games we've not scored. It's a big concern.
Yeah, I mean, that is a problem. I mean, looking into the game then, I mean, the lineup to me, and this is, I think, the most frustrating part about an outsider watching Hearts. I watched it in the semi and I seen the highlights. That's a really good, for me, player to player. They might not be playing well this season, but for me, that's a really talented team right there. That's 11 players, maybe bar a couple that people might not like, but that's 11 players that I look at and go, I'd take any of them at my team. I genuinely, I'd look at, especially the midfield, I look at Beningame and Devlin and specifically them, and I go, honestly, any of them in my team and I'd be absolutely loving it. To me, it's so confusing to watch a team, and I know it's the way the manager sets up and this and that, but to me, to look at the players and look at the confidence, it's bizarre to me because that's our living and on the bench as well, really quality players.
Yeah, you used a word there that I completely agree with, confidence, and there's a lack of that throughout the whole team. On paper, that team is, I would probably say, it's probably the third best team in Scotland, but it's not shown that. It was awful to watch yesterday. We bring in guys like Blair Spittle. I'm a big Blair Spittle fan. I think he's been really good for Hearts, but the last few games he's been awful. The whole team has. Sander Khartoum came in, scored those 2 goals against Dundee in the cup, and I thought, this guy's got something. He was awful yesterday. We paid £400,000 for him, and he was dreadful. That team on paper should be more than good enough to beat Dundee, and it was pathetic. And I go back to the subs. Taking off Benny at half time was just incredible. And this is where Critchley has cost himself, because you can't be doing that. You're taking off a guy like Benny, who knows what it means to play Hearts, who's one of our best players this season, and we had nothing. And the biggest thing for me, I said it earlier on as well, I think, in that first half, James Penrith got in down that left-hand side 3 or 4 times. He looks up, and the only person in the box he can hit is Kabangu. Where's the urgency to get in that box of support? There was nothing. And that lack of confidence through that whole team, it goes to the stands as well. I had my laddie with me yesterday. He's 13-year-old. And he, at the end of the game, booed the team. And that's not something he normally does. And I don't do it either. But he did that yesterday. That shows how bad that is. And he asked me a question as well yesterday, which was quite funny. Because I put a post on X yesterday saying that we must be the slowest team in this league. My laddie actually said to me yesterday, what's slower, Hearts or a turtle? I actually said a turtle. Because we are so slow. It was embarrassing to watch that yesterday. I will say, fair play to Dundee. Deserved to win the game. Simon Murray, ex-Hibs player, of course. But we just offered absolutely nothing. And it's another embarrassing performance.
Yeah, I mean, Murray's goal, I thought, could have been defended a bit better as well. I thought, the players were sitting too far deep by the time they actually struck the ball. But, I mean, it's just, as you said, it's that urgency of creating chances. I mean, although you're creating 14 shots for on target, it's no good enough. It's no consistent enough. As you mentioned, I was listening to Super Scoreboard and they were saying, the atmosphere was toxic inside of Tynecastle, which, it really does bed onto the pitch. If the players aren't having a good day, and rightly so, the fans should be critical of the players because it's not been good enough this season. But I mean, that will affect the players as well. You're looking now, and to be honest, I don't see Hearts getting sucked into this 11th place, relegation playoff. I think in order to do that, I know you're only 5 points off it, but it would take maybe 3 or 4 teams all being really bad at the same time, which I don't think is going to happen, to be honest. But is there genuine concern for you? You could get sucked into this?
Absolutely, mate. Like, I cannot sit here and say confidently that I think we'll get out of this, because I genuinely don't know if we will. We have to go to Ross County, which is not easy. The last time we went there, we drew 2-2 from 2-0 up. We should have won that game. We lost 2 goals in the last 2 minutes, which is embarrassing. But we aren't scoring goals. We've not scored in the last 4 league games. We don't score goals. Now, next week, we'll have Wilson back. We'll have Shanklin back. Things might change. I'm intrigued to see what Liam Fox is going to do in terms of team selection next week. Could players that have been out the picture come back in? I don't know. But there's got to be a big change next week, because 1 win, and we're probably fine. We'll get out of it. But if we lose next week and the gap goes down to 2, there's a massive concern. And the one thing that I think as well I've heard mentioned, and I agree with this as well, the teams in the bottom of the league know how to fight. I don't think this Hearts team does. Hearts want to try and play football. They want to try and pass the ball. They want to try and create chances. There's no fight in that team. The only one within a real fight, again, yesterday was Cammy Devlin. But fight only gets you so much. You have to have ability. That Hearts team lacks fight. And I just worry, if Hearts lose the first goal next week, how do they get back in it? Because we're not scoring goals. So, yeah, I am genuinely very concerned, mate. Very concerned.
Yeah. We move across then to Kilmarnock. They beat Ross County 2-0. That's a pretty big win for them. Obviously, the last game they played, they took that big loss to Celtic, and I was sort of thinking to myself, this is another one of the teams that look a bit dead and buried. They don't. They took 2 5-1 losses in 3 weeks. That's quite bad for Kilmarnock, and I sort of worried with them as well that they wouldn't be able to find a form, but they've picked up what you've got to say as a pretty crucial win against Ross County. I don't think, for what I heard, Ross County, done too much in the game. I think they kept bulk of possession, but how important was it that Kilmarnock got this one, especially at home?
Yeah, absolutely massive. Kilmarnock have been a very up and down team this season. I kind of thought early in the season, once they got knocked out of Europe, they would be fine, and they've not really kicked on. There were some decent performances and poor performances. But again, I talk about the fight in that bottom of the league. Do Hearts have that? I don't think we do. I think Kilmarnock do. They've got an experienced manager that knows how to get out of this. I genuinely do believe, though, I might be wrong, but I do believe that whoever finishes in the playoff place will be fine, because I think they'll beat the team that finishes in the playoff in the Championship, because that's just the way it works, unfortunately. But I think it was a big win for Kilmarnock yesterday. I saw the highlights. It was a better team, deserved to win the game. But I think they've had such a difficult season. Guys like Danny Armstrong, who I do like, Armstrong's been very off form this season. Nowhere near the player that he has been earlier on in the season. But it's a huge win. It's a massive, massive win. And they can now start to look a bit up the table rather than look at that playoff place. But yeah, it's a huge win for them.
Could you imagine John McGlynn's Falkirk versus Hearts in the playoffs? So I don't think anyone else would be able to handle that.
As a neutral, looking at the game from outside, I would love to see a Kilmarnock Ayr playoff. I think that would be absolutely box office.
I love to see that as well. Again, I'm a neutral, and I'm not too bothered on who finishes in that 11th playoff spot. But like Kilmarnock Ayr, Hearts, Falkirk, and on Motherwell, like Motherwell, Falkirk, or Motherwell, Livingston, to me, just I don't know. There's a few games that I look at in the playoffs, and I think that could be really interesting fixtures. In terms of Dundee, Ross County, sorry, they've taken yet another loss, and it's a bit of a weird season. Namedy was really putting them in conversation for that relegation playoff spot. They were sitting sort of mid-table, enjoying life, picking up results here and there. Now they find themselves in 11th. Do you think Ross County have enough to get out of this situation? Because, they've not won in the last 5 games.
Oh, great. They've got Hearts next week. That's guaranteed they're going to win that. I think, would that be the 3rd season in a row they've been in the playoff place, if that's the case? Because they were in it last season. I can't remember the season before that. But again, the playoffs are designed for the Premiership team, because the second leg's always at home. So they've got experience to getting out of this. But again, they're such a... I don't know. I think Don Kim is a decent manager, but I just don't know what their game plan is. Ronan Hale, I can't remember the last goal he scored. He started off very well, and I can't remember the last goal he scored. But I think they probably will be okay. But again, if they were in that playoff, they've got the experience to get out of it. I genuinely thought start of the season they won't be in this position again. And here we are again. But again, that game next week, Ross County Hearts, becomes massive for both teams. Whoever wins that gets a bit of confidence, and oh man, I wish I hadn't told me that stat about the fact I'm not 1-5, because that just guarantees they're going to beat us next week.
It is the last 3 seasons they've finished 11th, so
I thought it was.
History doesn't bed well for Ross County. Goals in that game come from Bruce Anderson, Liam Donnelly, by the way. Moving on to a bit of a cracker, by the way, in the bottom 6, Motherwell 3, St Johnstone 2. You'd probably ask Hangme, and I'd be a bit disappointed with that result, Alistair. Going away to Motherwell and scoring 2 goals, it's got to hurt if you don't at least take something for the game. But Motherwell, again, another really important point for them. They nearly chucked it as well. How do you think Vimer's got on so far. It's been a very weird start of his reign as Hearts boss. You know, he's before that game he hadn't won his last 4. He was dropping points everywhere. I know he drew with Hearts as well. But to go into that game to then get the win, I mean, could you sum up Vimer's start of a Motherwell reign? I mean, it's difficult enough.
Very patchy, I think. I mean, I heard an interview with Michael Wimmer last week on something, and I actually thought it came across very well. Thought he came across as quite a good guy, a likeable guy. But again, I just don't think he's got. I don't think he's got the quality. And again, coming to Motherwell's not going to be easy. Of course, it's not. But I think he seems to be a decent manager. Again, he needs a proper window in the summer. If they get out of this, which I think they will, I think Motherwell will be absolutely fine. They won't get dragged into this. They're now 7th, of course. But once he gets a decent transfer window, brings in a few signings of his own, I think he'll be fine. But that was a huge win for them yesterday. You know, St Johnstone are, again, I've said it to Alice before, I like Valakari. There's something about him that I quite like. He just doesn't have that quality. I think they're down. I've said this for weeks and weeks, I think they're down. But that was a big win for Motherwell. You know, and I don't know who they've got next week, but I think they'll be absolutely fine. But that squad at Motherwell, I just think it needs a bit more pace about it. It needs a bit more stability about it. But I think this season it's about getting out of this, finishing this season, starting next season reasonably well with the obvious Premier Sports Cup will start. But there's something about Michael Wimmer. I think he's actually not a bad manager. And I think he'll do well at Motherwell. I don't know why. I just have a feeling I think he'll do all right.
Yeah, Motherwell travel away to Dens next week, so that'll be a pretty interesting game. I agree with you on St Johnson's point. I think they are also down. I just can't see them getting out of this mess, to be honest. But I think Alistair would call me crazy for saying this, but I'm actually quite excited to see Valakari in action in the Championship. To me, when he can go and play his best stuff, and St Johnstone will be favourites, in my opinion, to come straight back up if they go down. To me, watching that type of football that Valakari likes in the Championship, it will be a really, really good watch for this season.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to get demoted to the Championship. I certainly don't. But I genuinely think Valakari's got something about him. I like managers that have got a philosophy. Now, I know I've said that earlier about Critchley, but I kind of like the fact that he's got this philosophy and knows what he wants to do. And I think going down to the Championship, as much as Alistair's going to hate it, I think they have to be one of the favourites to come back up because I think he will play really good football. Again, it's trying to sign quality, though. You know, can you sign quality for the Championship? You probably can. And I think they will come back up. I genuinely do. I think they've got a really good manager there who knows what he wants to do. He's got a philosophy. I think if they can keep him, I think they've got a guy in Mackenzie Kirk who will definitely score them goals in the Championship because I really rate him very highly. Uchik Piazzu's just back. I know that as well. Whether he's going to stay in the Championship, I don't know. But I think they'll be absolutely fine. And I do think Valakari will be a very good manager. We've played them a few times this season. And I've always come away with it thinking, you know what, they're actually a decent side. They just, I've said it to Alice before, they just don't score enough goals. They do create quite a few chances, but don't score enough goals. And that's been a big issue for them all season. But I think in the Championship, as much as I said before, the Championship's the best league in Scotland. I think St Johnstone in that league with Valakari will win that league comfortably because there's something about him I just think is going to get the best out of that team.
Yeah, Paul says agree with Graham. If they go down, sorry, I don't think St Johnstone will be in the Championship too long. I agree. I think they'll probably win it first time around. And the last time I got to watch St Johnstone properly in person was, of course, against my own team. They beat us 1-0 in Paisley, which was a really good result back then. I remember sort of speaking to Alistair after that, and he was saying, you know, he thinks there's a genuine chance they could stay up. And look, it's a bit of a nutshot. They're 6 points behind Ross County. It could happen. You know, it only takes a 3-game swing to get them back up fighting if other teams do bad. But for me, I can't see it. In terms of the game, Slattery, Sprangler, own goal, and Sparrow were the goal scorers for Motherwell. Mackenzie Kirk opened the score in 6 minutes. Get one back in the 66th minute. Of course, it wasn't enough. Moving into the top 6, Graham, a bit of good news for you. Your rivals finally lost a game of football.
The only good thing that happened yesterday.
Aberdeen beat Hibs 1-0. The goal come from Kevin Nisbet, a former Hibs player, of course. I've not actually seen what he done in the celebration. I did see the goal. It was a nice. I don't know if he apologised or not. I kind of hope he didn't, to be honest with you. But in terms of that game, I mean, what a result for Aberdeen. I mean, it shoots the top, the third place race right home. You know, that just shows that Hibs only guaranteed third, which a lot of people probably thought going into the game.
The irony that the ex-Hibs player scored the winning goal. Who saw that coming? I certainly did. It was actually a really good finish as well. He's lobbed it really well over the goalkeeper. It's a great finish. I mean, to be fair, the sports scene highlights really only showed a lot of Hibs chances, but Aberdeen, I think, actually played quite well. It's a huge one. I've said for weeks that I think Hibs probably will get third, but that now ties it up. Hibs are still ahead on goal difference, but it is so tight. It's a big win for Aberdeen. They needed to win that game, and I think they probably, on balance of play, I think probably just about deserved it, but it's a huge win. You know, I think the next few games are going to be absolutely vital. I do still think, unfortunately for me, because I'm always going to be honest, I do still think Hibs will get third. But Aberdeen had to win that game, and they've done it. I thought the atmosphere was actually quite good as well for Aberdeen. So, yeah, a big win. And honestly, it's a great finish from Kevin Nisbet. Really good goal.
Can't help but chuckle at that comment there for Let's Talk Football careers to get Emirates Hearts.
No, get it off the screen, no chance.
But I agree. I think you can't definitely say who's going to get third now, and I think it will be between Aberdeen and Hibs. Ultimately, I don't think Dundee United have enough about them. Respectfully to Jim Goodwin, that it honestly just sounds like I come on this show and just give Jim Goodwin a hard time, but I genuinely I can't see him getting into third. In terms of Hibs, then, I mean, obviously that's a disappointing one. They play Dundee United at home next week. How do you think they look to bounce back for that? Because obviously they should still be high in confidence. Look, going away to Pittodrie and losing by a goal to nil's not the worst result in the world. Of course, he would have liked something out of the game. I think before it, he maybe would have took a point, but going at home to Easter Road against Dundee United, I mean, should they still be feeling confident about that? You know, should they just try and wipe that result off and try and go again?
The downfall of Hibs has started, and I'm here for it, mate. No, I think they have to take confidence. What a run it's been. Honestly, it's been sensational. What, the only 2 defeats they've had since that game against Aberdeen at Easter Road with a 3-3 draw was Celtic. It's been an incredible run. And the fact that David Gray's got that new 3-year contract, I think it's been sensational. They will bounce back. You know, I think they will definitely bounce back. But then they're playing against United side that's just been hammered 5-0 off Celtic, so they have to bounce back as well. I think you're right. It's between Hibs and Aberdeen. I think United are out of it, sadly for them. But yeah, I think they will bounce back. But that game against United is going to be absolutely crucial. But they've had an incredible season, because everyone talked about the Aberdeen game being David Gray's last game. Nobody saw the run they've been on. It has been incredible. And fair play to him. I mean, we talk about Manager of the Year award. I know Brendan Rodgers might get it, but David Gray has to win with a shout for what he's done. But I think they'll bounce back. They have to take positives from what they've done so far. Going to Pittodrie is never easy for any team. So it was always expected they might lose that game yesterday. But what a run they've been on. It has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Paul says Hibs were happy to sit and play for a 0-0 draw, which would have suited them a lot better than Aberdeen. For us, it was a must-win, and Aberdeen will be happy with that win. Obviously coming off the back of the Scottish Cup semi-final wins. Sorry to remind you again, Graham, but they then travel to Paisley next week. They'll be looking to keep the run going. And to be honest, it's the first time I've sort of played Aberdeen a bit, and to be honest, felt really nervous. Obviously, the last time I played them, we won 3-0, but I don't know, this Aberdeen team to me just seems a bit more dominant. You know, they're a bit more confident than maybe the last time we played them. So I think for Aberdeen, they'll be full of confidence coming to Paisley.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, they've definitely turned the corner, Aberdeen. They went on that absolutely horrendous run of defeats after what a great start. But they started to pick up again. They're now in a cup final, although, sorry, Paul, if you're watching, I think they'll get absolutely hammered by Celtic in the final, but so would we if we had been there as well. But they've definitely turned the corner. And in Kevin Nisbet, they now have a guy that's scoring goals. I think having Papa Gay back is huge. Leighton Clarkson, who I'm a massive fan of, started to turn games again. Aberdeen are looking far better, and obviously Daba as well, that came off the bench and scored last week. They do have a really good squad there, but it's going to be very tight for that third place. But I do still think Hibs probably will sneak it, but these next couple of games could be absolutely critical.
Yeah. Moving on then, I will go to Paisley first. St Mirren 2, Rangers 2. A result that before coming on, Graham, I described to you as probably the first time we've played Rangers or Celtic, and I felt disappointed we've not got 3 points, never mind one. I mean, look, it's a really good point, of course. Any point against Celtic or Rangers is, but for how poor and how flat that Rangers team are, I'm really disappointed we couldn't get the win yesterday.
I don't know if it shows how good a season St Mirren have had or how far Rangers have fallen that you're talking like that, saying you're gutted to not beat Rangers. It may be a bit of both. I've not seen the highlights, so I don't know. Was it the Hearts game yesterday? I've not seen them. But it's a decent point for St Mirren, but I think you're right. Rangers have been absolutely terrible for weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't know what it is about them. You know, sometimes they look all right, sometimes they look really poor. It's another game they've conceded 2 goals. And I think from watching some of the highlights, they could have lost more. There will be a frustration for you, of course, as a St Mirren fan, you've not won the game. But, I mean, Rangers, they were decent in Europe. They went really well in Europe, really far. Good, well done them. But their league form has been absolutely horrendous. I mean, listen, you were there yesterday. You know more than I do. But I mean, was it a good St Mirren performance, or were Rangers really that poor?
To be honest, I think it was a bit of both, and I'll give a shout out to PTF blog, to Mark Yarden on Twitter, part of the Misery Hunters podcast. I put out a tweet after the game yesterday saying 2 points dropped there against the least organised, least interested and least talented Rangers side I can remember in the top flight, and it's hard to disagree with that. They look really unbothered. I thought this was Liam Kelly's, by the way, worst performance in a Rangers shirt so far. He gave the ball to Mandron twice, and again, that's why I miss Olasanya, because if Olasanya's there to sweep that up, it probably scores another 1 or 2 goals. Mandron did actually miss. I don't know if they'll show it in the highlights if you watch them back, but Mandron did miss an open goal. Liam Kelly passed it straight to him, and he hit it right over the bar. And at that point, I'm just gone, we're going to lose this game now, because that's the way it's been set up. But we did go on and get a point. I thought we were really good, to be honest with you. I thought, again, it didn't change the team too much for last game. I kind of expected that. Rangers, I think I was more excited to see how they got on, to be honest, than us. When the lineup came out, I was sort of looking at Bailey Rice in particular, and I know we spoke about him on the show before. I thought he was really good again. Raskin, I thought was really good, and I was impressed with Nsiala as well. So for me, looking at Rangers, yes, they look really, really disinterested, but there's signs there. There's players in that team that I look at and go, all right, if you can clear out most of the players that look disinterested and aren't good enough, you can get somewhere with this team. But again, they have the players that don't look interested, and it was so easy to cut through their defence. Obviously, the stats show Rangers had more of the chances, but if you watch the game, you know, it's a prime example of football's not played on stats. I thought that the chances that were created, we were much better. I thought Roland Adowa, when he came on, really changed the game, as well as Conor McMenamin. So there's plenty of positives for us to take, but Robinson, you could see it in his face after the game yesterday. He looked raging. We never get the 3 points, which could be crucial in that top 5 sort of place if we want to try and get it. I don't think we will, but it would have been huge if we could get another 2 points.
I mean, maybe that shows how far St Mirren have come. The fact they're disappointed to not beat Rangers. I mean, I know Rangers have been awful this season. We've not beat them, sadly. But maybe it does show how well St Mirren have done this season. The fact they're gutted not to beat a really poor Rangers side. I mean, I think, again, watching some of the highlights I think St Mirren probably, they had chances. But again, Rangers, they miss a lot of chances, but they concede a lot of goals. There's another game they've lost 2 goals. I don't know what it is with this Rangers side. They just concede so many goals. Again, I saw a stat yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but apparently Cyril Dessers missed another numerous chances. He must be so frustrating for Rangers fans, because I think he is Rangers' top scorer, but he misses so many big opportunities. I don't know what it is with him. But I mean, in terms of St Mirren, I've got the chance to ask you. You've sold all the Sanders to the MLS. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't watch MLS. I have no idea what the standard's like there. But for St Mirren, it's a lot of money for St Mirren. Now, I'm assuming that come the summer, Robinson will get a chance to spend some of the money, but it's a great move for him. I mean, what's your overall thoughts on Olasanya and now the fact he's gone?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if you look at the game yesterday, I'm probably disappointed he's not here, but for a guy that would be leaving for free in 5 weeks to get £200,000, which was the reported fee for him, I mean, you can't knock that down. That's an excellent bit of business, and that does show how far we've come. Not just on the park results. And I do agree that coming away disappointed to not beat Rangers is shown by how far we've come, but off the park as well, the business model that we've got now, we can bring guys in. We bring Olasang in for Middlesbrough for nothing. We sent him on loan to Arbroath. Arbroath fans, any of them would tell you they hated him, like really hated him, like it was no good down there at all. And when he came back, Robinson, I'm sure you've heard the story before. Robinson said, "You've got 12 months to impress me, or you're out the door." It's as simple as that. And he's just been a rocket ever since he came back. He's been so good. He's probably one of the quickest players in the league. It is incredible to watch him in games, and he scored some of the most important games I can, and the most important games that I can remember watching for St Mirren in recent years. So yes, he is a big miss, but I cannot be disappointed at the fee that we've got. That's money that Robinson can go out and bring maybe 4 or 5 players in for the reported fee that we've got from him. He can go and get guys that are the same as Olasanya. We don't bring in guys that are already like Olasanya. They're not the finished product. They're far from it. But what we do is we bring guys in and we go, right, you can look what we've done with certain guys. Look what we've done with Olasanya, Ryan Strain, Keanu Bacchus. We've brought them in. They've got international caps, some of them, and they're away going to bigger moves. So it's a business model that I'm really happy with. And to Olasanya, I mean, good luck in the MLS. I think he'll get on well. And I think the Houston Dynamo fans, for what I'm reading online, already are excited to see him play. So fully good luck to him. But I'm just happy that we've got that amount of money for a guy that would lose in 5 weeks for nothing.
Yeah, fair play. It's a great deal for St Mirren. Like I say, I don't watch MLS. I don't know what the standard's like, but it's a great move for Olasanya. It's a great move for St Mirren. And I mean, what I will say is, I talk about Stephen Robinson at St Mirren for Hearts manager. What I would say for St Mirren is the fact that it's now 3 top 6 finishes in the last 3 seasons is testament to St Mirren. I can't remember when it was, but I think Tony Fitzpatrick said a while ago St Mirren should be a top 6 club, and a lot of folk laughed at him. And now they've done it 3 seasons in a row. You have to give nothing but respect to St Mirren. They've done very, very well. I mean, I will be honest though, St Mirren fans, if you ever watch St Mirren on TV, are the most angriest fan base I have ever heard in my life. But it is quite funny. They moan about throw-ins all the time. But yeah, I mean, fair play to St Mirren. It's a fantastic move for him. Well done, St Mirren. Brilliant performance again to get in top 6. But I mean, I don't know how easy this is to answer, Robbie, but next season, you finish top 6 for the last 3 seasons. What's the aim for next season? Is it finish top 6 again, or is it to try and aim higher than that?
I mean, not to sound too like Stephen Robinson himself, but I think he's made it very clear that the intention every season is stay up first of all. That's always the first goal with St Mirren or any other team outside Rangers and Celtic in the league. It is, can we stay up this season? But look, Robinson will know that the expectations on him to get top 6 again. Fitzpatrick earlier in the season, and I remember the interview you're talking about. That was when I think we were just promoted. He said about top 6. I was listening to Tony. I think it was a event thing that I went to a couple months ago with him and Steve McGinn. And Fitzpatrick actually this season wanted top 4, which I sort of chuckled at the time. That's a very unrealistic aim. I mean, in the position we were in at the time, it was possible, but I never thought that would happen. Next season, though, I mean, look, I predicted us 7th this season, and I'd take 7th every season if it meant we were comfortable in a relegation. To me, that's a brilliant achievement for St Mirren. People forget that we've probably got the 10th, probably the 3rd lowest budget in the league to spend with. So to keep achieving these goals is a testament to us. And Ferguson was coming away for the game yesterday saying people don't fear playing Rangers. We've took 7 points off of them this season. That's the most we've taken off of Rangers since 2011, 2012. That to me just sums up everything about this season. It's it's been the underdogs again. It's people doubted us. People were thinking, oh, this will be the season St Mirren fall off. So to be in top 6 again, it's just a testament to us. I mean, for the outside, Graham, looking at the team, I mean, there's players in there that just, in my opinion, shouldn't be at St Mirren. But I mean, you're looking for the outside. I mean, how are you finding looking at us? Because every season the fan base is growing. You know, you look at a European March, the team's growing on and off the pitch. You know, what's it like from a neutral perspective? I've not really heard many people talking about it.
I think the job St Mirren have done has been fantastic. And you just mentioned that stat there about the amount of points you've taken off Rangers. That's a mental stat. I mean, St Mirren do play some decent football. I know that obviously when they had Olisanya and Mandron up front, they did go long at times, but it worked for them. They had the pace and going behind it did work. I think Mark O'Hara's a really good player. I wanted Ryan Strain before he went to St Mirren. I'll be honest, I think he's a cracking player. I think the job St Mirren have done has been fantastic. And I said at the time, when Hearts didn't get top 6 St Mirren did, I said at the time, fair play St Mirren. They absolutely deserve it. They're a really good club. They've got a lot going for them. And the fact that a lot of folk laughed at the fact that Fitzpatrick said they're going to finish top 6, well, nobody's laughing now. It's been fantastic. And if they can strengthen next season, which I'm sure they will, if they can strengthen the right areas, and they will give a lot of teams problems. Like home and away, they're a really difficult team to play against. Robinson's got a philosophy that he sticks with. They're a very, very good side. And if they got top 6 again next season, I would not be surprised. I mean, if they even finish higher than that, it would be incredible. But I think the job St Mirren have done and the job Robinson's done has been nothing but fantastic. And again, you talk about manager of the year, Brendan Rodgers, David Gray, Robinson again had to be able to shout at that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be honest. You know, I know we picked it on the show a couple of weeks ago and I picked McGlynn. I'm starting to really regret my choice now because it looks like he's going to bottle the championship. But I think he should be a shout, but I know we're a bit wary of time. Finally, we'll move on to the new Scottish Premiership champions. It is, of course, Celtic. They won now, 55? I saw you seeing it online these days, but they did beat Dundee United 5-0. Strain with an own goal, couldn't get a double, and he did get a double. Before we even get into the game, quickly, Graham, another brilliant season for Celtic. I know they've had their struggles at times, but this really has, you can say every season's history making. This one truly has been. They're now matched with Rangers on league titles and getting out the group stage for the first time in the Champions League. You can say what you want about, Rodgers has got it easy, this and that. He's got them players to go and get a treble. It's not as easy as that, and to actually go and achieve some of the things he has, it's got to be credited to him.
Absolutely. I think they've been dominant, as always. They're the best in Scotland. We all know that. They've got the money, they've got the backing, but they've got the players as well. Look at Daz Almeida. What's that, 33 goals I think he's got this season? He's really taken off the mantle of Kyogo leaving. He's been fantastic. He'll get Player of the Year. Absolutely no doubt about that. They scored 5 yesterday. They scored 5 against St Johnstone last week. They scored 5 against Kilmarnock the week before that. They're just a juggernaut. I don't see anyone stopping them. Going to Tannadice is not easy. United are a difficult team to play against, but they just made it look very easy. Adam Eder, who I think a lot of Celtic fans have been critical of, gets a couple of goals yesterday. Nicholas Kuhn, of course, gets a couple of goals. They're just dominant. I've always said, though, that you look at that Celtic team, the one player for me that I think sets the tempo for everything is Callum McGregor. I think he is a phenomenal football player. And they will win the treble. I've got no doubt they'll beat Aberdeen in the final. They will win the treble. It's 4 titles in a row. And I don't see who stops them. Like, I get asked this so many times, do you think anyone outside Rangers and Celtic will ever win the league? No. Nobody will. Celtic are just going to dominate Scottish football for years and years to come. Even with this investment Rangers will get from the 49ers, nobody can get close to Celtic. They're far too good, they're far too strong, and they're just going to get stronger.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd agree with everything you've said there. It's mental to even ask that type of question, and I get to ask quite a lot as well. But do you think MD will top the from? It is impossible. We are too financially behind to even get close. I think the closest team financially, and I could be angry, but in my opinion, Hearts playing in Europe the last couple of seasons, I'd probably guess they're closest to Rangers and Celtic in terms of the finances. But even Hearts look a million miles off, and so do Aberdeen as well. So it's not going to happen. But just what the final word on Dundee United. Our old pal Jim Goodwin, of course. Another disappointing result. Next week they play Hibs away. Can they Dundee United do the ball? They sit and try and overleap Jim Goodwin. I don't know if it will happen, but they don't look impressive. I mean, I know they won the last 3, but they were very narrow wins.
I hope United win next week, so I think I'll go for it just now. I mean, listen, you take it on the chin. You're playing against the best side in the league in Celtic. That's going to have to take it on the chin. I would not read too much into yesterday. They usually are a difficult team to play against. We've struggled against them this season completely. But I think that they will bounce back from that. They'll be looking to go again next week against Hibs. I don't know. I think it's very tight between St Mirren and United. I don't know who's going to get that 5th place. But listen, St Mirren have got a big opportunity. But I think in terms of yesterday, you write it off. You're playing against Celtic, write it off, move on and forget about it. Because Celtic can do that to every single team in this league.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I say that like they started after the first 30 minutes actually all right as well. I thought they played very well, but that is all we have time for. Graham, thank you so much for joining me on the show. We will be back on Friday. Actually, we're going to do a Scottish Cup. Michael asked me to mention this. We're going to do a Scottish Cup special, or that's not Scottish Cup, a Scottish Championship special on Friday. I don't think he realised that every game was on Friday, so we will be on before and after the show, the games, to obviously discuss who wins the league. I mean, some very interesting games. Falkirk, Hamilton, obviously the big one, Livingston, Partick Thistle. So we will be back on Friday. But any final words, Graham?
Well, I just wanted to ask you on the Championship thing. Do you think Falkirk are going to blow this?
Yes, I do. I always say a day because I know Livingston dismantled to Hamilton 3-0, but they were good before that. And I remember watching the highlights between Queen's Park, and I know it finished 0-0, but they looked a really solid, defensively good team. I think if they can get this right going away to Falkirk, it will become very toxic very quickly if Falkirk don't manage to take an early lead against Hamilton. I think the longer that game goes on, the pressure builds. And look, Livingston playing Partick Thistle, I don't think they'll need to play with any pressure. I think Martindale will know, just go and get a job done, then we'll see what happens. But I think they will bottle it. What about you?
I think they probably will get through it. I think they probably will beat Hamilton next week. But you're right, the nerves are going to show. The one thing I will say though is, we talk about this all the time. The one thing I will say is that sending off for Agiman on Friday is never, ever, ever a sending off. He wins the ball. How that is, he's basically gone off the reaction of the Partick Thistle fans. That is never a sender off.
I'd agree with that, to be fair. It was mental though. I just did not expect, well, Graham's gone, but I just did not expect Falkirk to lose, but that is all we have time for. We will see you guys on Friday, and then we'll be back on Sunday to recap the games. Goodbye.
The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live